Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. My name is Ashley Studholme. I'm in the Occoquan District and representing the Prince William Conservation Alliance. And we are an environmental nonprofit that focuses on creating equitable and sustainable communities throughout Prince William County. And of course, part of that is also being good stewards to our parkland, which is why I would like to speak today. So I'm here to speak on one of the agenda items in opposition to initiate the CPA, the Comprehensive Plan Amendment for the Benison proposal. This proposal lies within the legislative boundary of Prince William Forest Park, which is one of our national parks, one of two here. And that means that this land was identified by Congress as important to the long-term protection, integrity, and potential future expansion of the park. Most of the land within the legislative boundary that was zoned A1 was included as part of the Rural Crescent as a way for us to be good neighbors to the park. And the land proposed here is mostly forested and zoned A1, which I think is appropriate for this area. That zoning supports watershed protection for Quantico Creek and contributes to the ecological integrity of Prince William Forest Park. Because of its condition and location, this land has the potential to one day become parkland if that is there's an opportunity there. But once development pressure is introduced, these values are permanently diminished. Under current by right development, this site could accommodate 3 homes, and that is a scale that is far easier for the park to manage than what is being proposed. George Liffert, the superintendent of Prince William Forest Park, has stated that he is not supportive of this initiation. And I understand that this initiation doesn't guarantee a rezoning, but just to study it. However, it does commit the county, the applicant, and Park Service staff to a lengthy and costly process to evaluate, which something that frankly doesn't provide a foreseeable benefit to the park. So I would say Prince William Forest is really a gem, not just for the residents of Prince William County, but for all of Northern Virginia and for the country. And we should be proud stewards of that. And so my recommendation is that this remains A1 and that this isn't initiated. That would be the first step to upzoning it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello?
I'll take the first question, and I want to talk about it being within the legislative boundaries of Prince William Forest Park. Could you give a detailed explanation? Exactly what does that mean?
I would defer this question to David McGettigan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. David McGettigan from the Planning Office. So the legislative boundary is the boundary authorized by Congress for acquisition of land to add to the forest park. That is allows the park to go and acquire the land without having congressional approval. That is all that is involved in the legislative boundary. We do keep track of it in our comprehensive planning, and it helps guide us in designating parks and open space, and that's why this is designated parks and open space.
All right, I know the CPA obviously, and I want to say to people, the CPA is not a rezoning because we've received a lot of emails. The CPA is not a rezoning. But there was concern from the superintendent of the park, Superintendent Liefert. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing his name. What would you say to his opposition?
As staff have noted, the request to the board today is to initiate the comprehensive plan amendment. It is not to request the board to take action on the comprehensive plan amendment itself. What we would do is if the board votes to initiate the CPA, we would do an in-depth analysis of the request and take a number of matters into consideration, which would include the potential impacts on Prince William Forest Park And so we would definitely incorporate and would include considerations of the superintendent's perspective or position on the CPA.
Thank you. Before I go on to the next, I hear something. I don't know if someone's playing something on the phone or if we can make sure that, thank you so much. All right, Supervisor Vega, I believe you have some questions.
Madam Chair, you're right. The initiation of a CPA is not the rezoning, but let's be real and stop kidding ourselves. When has staff ever recommended a CPA to move forward and then recommend for denial after their findings? That's an actual question.
Thank you for the question, Supervisor Vega. To my knowledge, it has only been done once.
For what matter was that?
It was for a comprehensive plan amendment to change residential to commercial designation along Minnieville Road,
And when was that done?
probably 2007.
2007. Thank you. That's the point, right there. But the reality is that we're opening a door that we're not going to close, and this will very likely come before this board for us to approve and/or deny. And of course, the Board of County Supervisors reserves the right to approve or to deny, but let's be real. We are talking about an area, as has already been mentioned, where the property lies entirely within the legislative boundary of the Prince William Forest Park. There's a reason why this area was designated as park and open space to preserve this land, to protect the environment. Folks, whether it's data centers or whether it's development, we are getting to a point where the recklessness of the votes we take on this dais are having real consequences and impact on our quality of life. And I'm just asking for us to really think about this, because our vote today to greenlight the initiation of this CPA is going to mean just that the next thing that will be before us will be a land use application to approve what's been specified in the staff report. The next question that I have is, the staff report states 125 dwelling units, but there is 8 affordable single-family attached units. Is the inclusion of these units the primary driving factor for this initiation, yes or no?
No.
No, thank you for that. And that is important because, we keep getting told by COG, again, a bunch of folks that really have no knowledge of what it really is to live in Prince William County. We're being dictated numbers that we have to meet in terms of housing. I will later be asking where we are in that number, because we were given a number and we are approving a whole bunch of housing, and that's great, right? Because the real way to attack the affordable crises in housing that we're experiencing is by having more product on the market. I understand that, but how we offer that product matters. And I just want to be very clear here that in an effort to try to solve a problem, we are opening the door and creating a dozen others. So all I'm asking, Madam Chair, and to my fellow board mates, is for us to be mindful, to be very thoughtful in what it is that we're doing, why we're doing it, and to really, really think about the unintended consequences if we decide to vote today to initiate the CPA. That's all I have for now.
Supervisor Gordy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Supervisor Vega, for those words. You're exactly right. This will be a CPA, but it'll also be a rezoning. They will happen simultaneously, and they will come before this board at the same time. And instead of we're literally already trying to bake the cake in order to make this happen. I will just share my 90,000-foot view concern that we have as a county. This is not the only CPA that's getting ready to come to this board. There's at least a half a dozen that I'm aware of. And we already have a comprehensive plan that we worked very diligently on that sufficiently helps us meet the housing requirements and the housing needs for this county through 2040. It's already done. And yet the development community is insistent on ignoring that plan and trying to develop their own plan outside the scope of the current CPA, which is only 2 years old. And now we've got at least a half a dozen of these CPAs coming in for thousands of homes outside of what the current comprehensive plan is. And we are literally opening up Pandora's box. We also are seeing, in our strategic documents, and the one thing that the residents of this county has told this board to prioritize is protection of open space and parks. And here we are taking parks and open space as designated in our comprehensive plan and are going to once again write it off and saying we're not going to follow our own strategic plan and invest in the things that the residents of this county have told us that is an absolute priority for them. Number one, this is their number one priority. And so, I appreciate the desire on the part of the applicant, but again, this is just one, and we're going to open up Pandora's box as we continue to go forward. And so, I'm just have the to appreciate the questions that Supervisor Vega offered, and I just want to echo those as well. Thank you.
I just want to say, if we have questions, because we are going to have a discussion time, and the discussion is going to be in the motion. So if anyone has questions, all right, Supervisor Bailey.
I know, I was talking to Madam Chair. I just wanted to, if I could, ask a couple of questions. Number one, in terms of the park adjacency in the context of that sensitivity, what specific edge conditions and buffering standards will staff evaluate to ensure any future development protects the park's environmental and historic context? And that's in reference to the park, the legislative boundary in the park.
So if this CPA is initiated, staff will evaluate obviously the adjacency with the park, but in terms of the specific buffers and those, to that point, that is dependent upon what the rezoning application proposes, and so that would definitely be evaluated as part of the rezoning application. And so there are mechanisms for staff to evaluate that and to work with the applicant if there are concerns or questions about the adequacy of the buffers, and that is part of the normal county review process.
But that
for
will be
rezoning
taken into
applications.
consideration before we take a vote on it?
Absolutely.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to ask is in terms of affordability, staff notes the affordable units are anticipated. Can you clarify what affordability levels are being contemplated in the project? You know, how affordability will be integrated in the neighborhood design rather than isolated?
At this point, we do not have those details
Okay.
because the rezoning application has not been submitted.
Okay. So I just want to, so here's what I want to say. I certainly, in respect of the legislative boundaries for Prince William Forest Park, and also understanding that we certainly want to preserve open space, but also, is this land privately owned?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Supervisor Angry.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that lead-in, because, so, little research, Prince William Forest is 15,000 acres of land. This land is privately owned, about abuts the forest. Do we know how many more privately owned lands in Prince William County, because I know this goes out to Stafford as well, that literally are bumped up against Prince William Forest that could be in the same situation? It's their land. We don't have a clue of that.
We don't
Okay.
have that number.
I'd be curious to see how much more land on the outskirts of this 15,000 acre forest is in this situation. So,
All right, I don't see anyone else in queue for questions, so thank you so very much. Wait, hold on, did you have a question?
Well, Supervisor Angry, are you asking for that information? I can make it easier. How many more around the National Forest?
We would have to get back to the board on
Okay.
that question.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bailey.
How many residents? Is that what the question was, or what?
Privately.
Privately owned.
on Joplin Road, there's residents there. I'm curious how many more situations, I guess we won't even know, because this is a landowner who now wants to sell their land. So all of these homes along Prince William Forest could eventually want to sell their homes and be in the same situation. I know that's a difficult question to answer. I just know that along Prince William Forest are homeowners and landowners who own land out there. And again, when we get into this discussion about privately owned land, it's a tough discussion. I get it. But we're not eating at the 15,000 acres of Prince William Forest. This land is literally tied to them. That's their private owned land. Unless we're going to start having federal discussions about taking that land and doing that, then that's something we should be discussing. But if a homeowner, landowner wants to sell their land, and I feel like this is what this board obligation is to do, is to look at those opportunities and how best we can go about it. And the only way we can do this is to determine what we can do with the land, thus the application. So,
Madam Chair, if I may.
All right, Supervisor Bailey, and I just want to say we cannot take federal land. I just have to be very clear. We cannot take federal land. I know, I just want to clarify for everyone. We cannot take, all right, Supervisor Bailey.
Well, we do need to go down that discussion, but the thing that I would be interested in as a research point, I live in an area that this was done in. I live in an area that this was done in. So if you could bring that kind of information back to us to help us make a decision as it relates to privately owned land that was carved out of the forest, and what were the implications in that, and how did we come to that decision? What were the negotiations with the park superintendents at the time? That kind of thing, I think, informs us as to how we came about to craft a Brittany with a similar situation of what we're talking about now. Is that clarity? I think that would help us as well.
If I could perhaps reframe, the question is, I think I
Please.
understand it, but just to make sure we are clear. So the legislative boundary in general reflects privately owned land that is not a part of the park currently. It is not owned by the federal government. I believe I heard the question of, if I understand it correctly, how many acres of privately owned property that is within the legislative boundary exists now. That was, I think, one question that I heard. With regards to your question, Supervisor Bailey, for the Brittany, was it ever owned by the Park Service? Do we know? The Brittany was not federally owned, so it was
That was the
privately owned
question.
property.
Was it federally owned?
No,
That
it
was
was
the
not. It
question.
was privately owned property. It was within the legislative boundary. So projects have been approved and built within, on privately owned property within the legislative boundary, such as the Brittany, but that one was not
Thank you.
owned by the
Thank
federal
you.
government.
Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Stewart, you have questions?
So how many other properties in the comp plan are designated as that are privately owned by residents, are designated as parks and open space?
Would have to get that exact number to you, but there are properties like that throughout the county, not just along the, for instance, the Prince William Forest Park.
All right, because that's an issue. That's a problem. David?
I could just say we have a directive asking us this similar question that we're going to prepare a response to, but generally, with the comprehensive plan being the long-range plan, we also want to plan where parks and open space will go, and it doesn't look at the parcels necessarily when doing that plan. It looks at environmental features and things that we want to protect, and the reason to do that is not only to identify land that we may want to acquire as park land, but we may want to have purchase of development rights opportunities on that land, or we may want to, if we develop a transfer development rights program, we might want to protect that. So there are various reasons for planning your parks and open space throughout the county, and so that has been done, and wasn't in consideration of what the land ownership was, but it's the opportunities that we have to make open space corridors and green corridors that connect our open spaces and parks.
Okay, so why was that not taken into consideration as to like people live there, people, multi-generational homes, that sort of thing. Why not take that into consideration, people's private property being designated as such in the comp plan?
Because it's a long-range plan, and we want to plan for more parks and open space. And it doesn't provide, even though it doesn't provide an opportunity for intense development or rezoning, it does provide an opportunity for to participate and get money for the development rights through the Purchase of Development Rights Program, as an example, that isn't afforded to if it was just designated agricultural and forestry, which we would not be looking to obtain that kind of land. So, and it still would have the same restrictions as far as rezonings that an agricultural and forestry planned land would have.
All right, thank you. So in the meantime, but you did say this at the beginning, you're going to come back with that information.
Yeah, we'll come back with more detailed information.
Thank you.
And talk about this subject more.
Thanks.
All right, are there any more questions? I don't see any more questions, so I would like to go ahead and ask for a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. Supervisor Bodie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I waited until this part because I didn't have any questions. I had a couple comments. I appreciate the discussion the board has had. I do. I think there's a lot of valid and well-reasoned arguments on all sides of this. I will just reaffirm and say this is the exact reason why I really wish we had funded and had the PDR program moving a lot sooner than now. Because right now, this is the only opportunity we're giving folks. Either do nothing with your land or eventually get it developed by something. We are giving people no other options. We've talked about the REPE program. We've talked about these other programs that we could allow us to avail ourselves to leverage other sources of funding to help people still realize value on their land while also preserving it. We're currently not able to do that, and so here we are. That said, as was said by Supervisor Bailey, context also matters, and just south of here, this was done before, right? There is housing that exists just south of here on this side of 234, so I think that matters too. I will also just say that as a closure, we do have an opportunity to obviously partner with the developer on this to make sure there are very stringent protections on the boundaries of this property. We have the ability to evaluate that as well. I already had my meeting with the applicant, the folks who are looking at this last week, so that's part of the discussion as well. I will just say I'll be supporting this, but I agree with folks that are frustrated by this, and I will just say that I will continue to advocate for us to adopt the PDR program and other tools like the TDR program as quickly as possible so we can give landowners other options. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Supervisor Bodie, for your comments. The other thing, too, I just wanted to make a comment in terms of the tools that we use to make these decisions so that we are not doing it in a vacuum. And a couple of those tools that we use, Supervisor Bodie mentions the REPE grant, those kinds of things, integrating with COG as it relates to the region and what it looks like with rules and requirements. And so we are a county that is growing, and people want to live in Prince William County. And so we have to be responsible with the land, of course, with parks and recs. We have to be responsible of the Forest Park, which is our national treasure. But we also have to be responsible in providing shelter for people in this county. And so that's why when we make these decisions, they're not. And this is a long-range decision. This is a decision that's been in the hopper for a year, but prior to that, longer than that. And so with the tools that we have in our toolbox to make a decision like this, it's important that we incorporate not just one perspective from Prince William County, but as it relates to what the region has done. So we're making informed decisions. And so I thank Supervisor Vega for bringing that up, because that was imperative. And I also thank staff for the hard work that you've done to work with the applicant to make sure that we are going along a path that is correct. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, as we do this, we have to include the community in this decision, and that's imperative as well. That's the other thing that we do not do in a vacuum, and I know y'all don't. So I don't want that to permeate on camera or off, that's what we do, because I know that'll be a part of the process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so very much. Many things have been said. I do want to emphasize for people that this is private land. I mean, it is privately held land. However, I do have concerns, and coming from the superintendent of the Prince William National Forest Park, I want to make sure that I hear that, because we've heard similar things from Quantico. Quantico is very concerned about a lot of the building going on around it. And with Quantico, it is a different case. It is because they are doing exercises, military exercises. And you don't want to live right up against the border and hear what's going on. From where I live in Montclair, we hear the sounds of freedom. That's a lot louder if you're living close to the base. I am going to support this, but with a very big caveat, and it's that I work more closely with the applicant on shaping this project and making sure that we are listening to the superintendent of the parks. That's critical. I do understand that there are a lot of people who have concerns about the project. I live in close proximity, closer than perhaps anyone on the board. I mean, I know we're pretty close, but Montclair is right there. So with that, I will support it, but again, I want to have a greater hand in shaping this. I think that what they're submitting, if this is exactly what the rezoning is going to look like, then that's not something that I will support. So that's all I have to say on the project. I know Supervisor Vega, you have a few things you want to say?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to thank all the folks from the Potomac District who took the time to email this board. We had a lot of folks concerned. I'm asking that we not initiate the CPA, but as you can tell, the cake has already been baked. What I will tell you all is this. This will come before us as a formal land use application. When that time happens, you will have another opportunity to voice your concerns or support, whatever the case may be. And as stated, I would suggest that you get involved in this process. Reach out to Supervisor Bailey's office, give your opinion so that you can actually have a seat at the table in shaping what this proposal will look like to ensure that all of your concerns are addressed and all of your questions adhered to. I will not be supporting it, and I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, but thank you nonetheless to everybody that reached out to the board in opposition to this CPA initiation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Angry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For this board and I guess the public listening, when it comes to land and folks owning land, landowners, I'm always going to look at that first. This country is founded on generational wealth of people having land and selling their land and developing it, and that's how these families have been successful for thousands, hundreds of years. So that's my first piece. I'm always going to look at that. Now, if this were 100% federal property, park land, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But the reality is there are folks who own land around many military installations, many federal forests. I can tell you Fort Belvoir alone, Davidson Army Airfield built a community right off the back of the runway, and 20 years later people complain about engine jet run-ups. Well, you shouldn't have bought that house there because that airfield is going nowhere. I'm pretty sure Quantico is going nowhere, but the folks who have this land have a right to develop or sell their land, I should say. How it's developed is a decision of this board in many localities. So I am willing to see the process through to see what it turns into and then look out for the issues of the folks around it. But in no way am I touching federal land, because if that were the case, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But they have a right to sell their land, and we have a right to figure out how to best develop the land. So I'm willing to take this process where it needs to go to see what that end product will be. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Supervisor Bailey, and then, Supervisor Bailey.
Okay. I just wanted to say also thank you to my citizens that your voices are always heard in my office as well as around in the other supervisor's office as well, because we work collaboratively when we make these decisions. It's not just segmented to the one supervisor. That's how we're working. And so I just wanted to make sure that my constituency knows, as I always have, very transparent when you call and when you come, and we hear you. That's why I asked, will we be going out to the community? Because we don't want to politicize this and at all, but we want to make sure that it's fair and it's equitable in this decision. And how we do that is respecting each other. So I just wanted to say that and to thank you to the citizens again, because, it's rare that my citizens don't contact me, but it's not rare that my citizens don't contact other supervisors. And I really welcome that. I welcome that. That gives me an opportunity to call those supervisors and make a decision.
Supervisor Stewart.
So this whole thing gives me pause. Bottom line is, the build that happens here needs to happen at the extremely low end of what can be developed. Anything other than that, and I really can't support it. But I do agree with Supervisor Angry. It's somebody's private land, and it's theirs to sell. And so, yeah, I'm gonna reluctantly support it. But definitely, those are my. I'm sending a letter early. That's my demand, that we be at the extreme low end of density in this spot. Thanks.
I'm just going to say a few words before I call for the vote. I guess, again, lots of things that you're hearing. I just want to make my position clear. The cake has not been baked. The cake has not been baked. And I do want to look at the density, and I do want to work with everyone on seeing what we can do with this. It is their land. It is your land to sell. But it's the decision of the board to rezone it. And that's where I want to make the decision, or the distinction. People have the right to sell their land. I am all for capitalism. I'm all for it. But as the board, we are looking out for the public good. And there is a lot of concern about this project, and I'm hearing it. So I will support it. I will half-heartedly support it, and I will support it with a very big asterisk that we are going to work on it, and we're going to work on getting this right and something that makes sense for the surrounding community. And I want to make sure that everyone understands, do not take my vote for granted. I generally support housing, but do not take my vote for granted. Because we do have a lot of projects coming up that are questionable, that I am making requests of. I have typically, as chair, relied on the supervisor because supposedly they're closer to the action. But there are a lot of projects I'm looking at, and they don't sit right with me. I have made requests on certain projects. These are things I'd like to see changed. But I am going to take a larger role, particularly with the community outcry that we're receiving. Again, I take very seriously hearing from the superintendent of the Prince William Forest Park. I also understand that this is private land. So this is something that I would like to work closely with, with the applicant and with you, Supervisor Bailey, to make sure that we come to a good project.
Madam Chair, I would love that.
No, please, I appreciate that, but let me finish. I respected your time and I ask that people respect my time as well. This is not fully baked. It is not finished. What they are submitting, I do not support. I will support a CPA so that we can have further discussions and so that our planning staff has time to look at this and to figure out how to make this better. So with that, I would like to call for the vote.
Motion passes 5-2. Supervisors Gordy and Vega voting nay.
All right, thank you.